from that point on, that's when I kind of took a left and changed my path and realized I want to be, whatever he is, that's what I want to do. So I contacted the person who ran the clinic. She said, yeah, that's our strength and conditioning coach. I'll get you in contact with him. I got in contact with him. He told me exactly what I needed to do. These are the certs you have to get. This is the route you have to go, the path you have to go. And then ultimately, I took the CSCS test. Are we familiar with what the CSCS test is? So I spent an entire semester. I'm teaching it full time. I'm in grad school full time. I'm coaching full time. I'm getting to work early. And I'm studying from before school till I gotta teach. Going back in the library at lunch, I'm just studying. Because my background is psychology. And that certification that I got for personal training was not even close to preparing me for this test. So I studied, took the test, passed the test. Honestly, don't know how I passed it because like the second question, I was like, this is gonna be a long afternoon. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna pass this, but I passed the test. Finished my last year at Notre Dame Academy, 2008. Then interned at UCLA that second semester in that summer, and then got my first time assistant position at Cal State Northridge. So I don't even know where I would be right now if I didn't go to that coach's clinic. You know, maybe I would have seen a strength coach. I'm sure I would have been exposed to it somehow. But for me, that was the moment. It's like when actors kind of see a play and they think, I want to be an actor. I want to be up there. Like that's exactly how it happened for me. Okay, so that's kind of like my journey of how I got here. And I wanted to include these certifications. So I got my bachelor's in psychology, secondary education from LMU. But for me, it's less about the stuff in academia, and it's more about how I've kind of taken it upon myself to just learn as much as I can. Yes, thank you. That's what this is for. Because I didn't come from a Kines background. I didn't come from being academically prepared to be in this field, and so I've always feeling like I'm trying to play catch up, and whenever I can get any kind of certification or any kind of education I can to get better at what I do, then that's the route I'm going to take. So I've got the rock tape was do we know about rock tape and like what it does?
Kinesiology, guys.
Yeah, that was
similar.
Incredible experience because that's all about movement, rock tape, and then different mobility certifications. But again, this is just kind of like my route: Bally's, coaching, right, and then where I'm at right now. So my question, before we even get started, what do we know about programming and periodization? Do we know anything? Let's say I'm a basketball player, and you're the strength coach, and you have to put together a program. What are the first things that would cross your mind in regards to putting together a program? What would you think?
If they have injuries.
Okay. What are the most common injuries for the sport?
You want them to like it.
You want them to like it. They may not. But if you like it and you're passionate about it and you're confident in what you do, the majority of them will like it. If you're burnt out, you're over it, you don't really want to explain things when people have questions, and they're probably not going to like it. So it is very dependent on your approach to the weight room. Did you say something? Seasons, right. So I'm looking at, well, let's just talk about a sport that you guys can relate to. So what's a sport that we play coming up? Nobody played sports.
We have 3 basketball players here.
Okay, so basketball and then
Volleyball.
well, so I'm thinking, what are the needs of the sport? It's an anaerobic sport, right? It's an explosive sport. I'm thinking of injuries, so shoulder, right? I'm thinking ankles, knees. So I'm thinking, hey coach, how did the season go last year, right? What were the most common injuries? And then coach, what do you need from me? So what are your goals? Do we need to be more explosive? Do we need to be faster on defense? Then we have a conversation. And then from there, I kind of put together my workouts, whether it's agility, conditioning, or weight training. But periodization, we're just talking about training cycles. So macro, if we're talking about collegiate, the year. So the entire year, I have 12 months. How am I going to put these workouts into different blocks over the entire year? Right? That's the entire year. The mesocycle is basically the month. So maybe for 3 months in the off season, we're doing something specific. Then in season, we're doing something specific. So that's where we break it up into months. And the microcycles are each week. So maybe this week we're going to be doing percentages at 75% of our main lifts. Maybe the following week we're going to be lifting the load to 80%, right? On a weekly basis, I could be changing something, changing a variable. So macro, meso, and microcycles. based on specific goals and objectives, right? So based on whatever the coach says that we need to work on. But I have worked with somebody who was trying to get to the Olympics. So I worked privately with a short track speed skater. So then we're working on a longer timeline. So we're trying to get him to the Winter Olympics. And so now I'm working on a way longer timeline to try to get him there. And he's got different types of, I think they were called like these pro-am races. We had different races in between the time that we were training. So I had to prepare him for smaller races and ultimately for the Olympic trials. So it's definitely based on how much time I've got with that person. And this is where, at the top, I talked about the 4 different training cycles. This is what I'm working with. So right now, we've got women's volleyball just ended. So they're in their postseason. Those 2 weeks after, they can do whatever they want for those 2 weeks. So they can do recreational stuff. They can play sports for fun that they've never played before. They can not do anything. But that's the only time the entire year they get that freedom and that luxury to not really do anything. Let their bodies recover physically, emotionally, just kind of relax for a little bit, chill out a little bit. Then here's where most of the work gets done in that off season, which can be anywhere from 16 to 24 weeks. So that's where we put in work. That's where if we're trying to cut weight, we're working on diet. That's where if we're trying to put on mass, we're working on our diet. That's where we're trying to get strong as hell. If we're trying to get strong as hell, that's where most of our work gets done to prepare us for the season. So right now, my fall sports, like my baseball, my men's volleyball, and my softball, we're finishing our off season this week, okay? Then we've got our preseason, so a few weeks leading up to that first competition, and then when they're in season. So sets, reps, volume, everything is going to be manipulated based on whatever time of year we're in. So I'm not going to be doing 5 sets of 5 in season. I'm not going to have a ton of volume in season. My goal is maintenance. We've already got as strong as we could. Now let's just maintain that as much as we can, because we're not going to be lifting as much, right? So let's just maintain whatever we gain in the off season. That's the goal of the in season. Any questions? Program so far? Okay. Anybody play? So we got some athletes here, right? Okay, and you guys are lifting? Okay. So did you lift in high school?
Not really.
Okay. So have you been seeing benefits just from within your game? Yeah, right. Super beneficial. Okay. So in the past, this is hard to see. This is how I used to put my programs together. This is a year. Each of these blocks are months. And I was a fan of linear periodization. Do you know about linear periodization? So linear periodization, essentially, this would be the order of how I would put my mesocycles together, my microcycles. So when I first get an athlete, if you guys are a team, and I first get you guys, this is the first phase. So anatomical adaptation or a general physical preparedness, GPP. That's going to be, if you're studying about this in your strength and conditioning book, that could take anywhere from 12 to 16 weeks or longer, but that's not realistic if we're talking about collegiate realm, because I have a semester and that's it. So we can't spend an entire semester doing 4x12s or like 5x12s. So for those, what I used to do is for the first, until we tested, first 6 to 8 weeks, we were doing high volume type of work. So sets of 10, sets of 12, just getting the muscles, the tendons, the joints and ligaments just accustomed to lifting weights, just building up a base of strength. So when it was time to test or pre-test, 1 rep max, back squat, clean, and bench. Those were the lifts that I usually test. Just getting their bodies physically prepared to lift maximal loads. That was my goal. Then we would get to a little bit of hypertrophy. We would test, right? We'd go through that pre-test, go through a strength phase, retest. So now we're saying, okay, if I back squat at 325 when I pre-tested, if I'm back squatting 345, then quantitatively speaking, I'm stronger than I was 4 weeks ago. So it gives me data to see if we're getting stronger. And then we would go into some sort of power phase where the weight would become lightened, but we're working on speed of the movement, so being more explosive. And then season would start. And all this is showing you, I would just have specific, when it was linear progressions, it was like we're working at 70% this week, 75, so each week we kind of would progress linearly, kind of towards this goal of getting stronger. That's the, I guess, the simplest way that I can put it. It wasn't like there was an explosive day and there was a max strength day. It wasn't non-linear, it was strictly just linear. We're going through strength phase, retest, another strength phase, and then power, very linear. Okay. Okay. In regards to, and then I'm going to talk about what I do now, which is something super different, and it works a hell of a lot better than what I was doing before. But in regards to how we put the workouts together, this is the order. So do we know what power exercises are? What are the power exercises?
Well, it's incorporating speed, not just strength, but speed.
Explosiveness. So my snatches, my cleans, my jerk, those are my power exercises. They require the most from the nervous system, so I'm going to make sure that I'm not doing heavy squats and bench before I hit my cleans or my snatches. And we know what cleans and snatches and jerks are, right? Okay, those explosive movements. So powers first, then I hit my core movements. That's going to be my deadlift, my bench, my back squat. And then I hit my assistance exercises. My rows, my posterior chain work, any kind of rear delt work or shoulders or what have you. That's kind of the order that I put my lifts together. But I discovered something called the triphasic program. So there's a strength coach out of University of Minnesota named Cal Dietz. And is anybody into podcasts here? You guys listen to podcasts? So it's okay if you do. There's a podcast called Barbell Shrugged. And if you listen to Barbell Shrugged, just Google that Cal Dietz. Cal, C-A-L, Dietz, I think it's D-I-E-T-Z. But I was on the treadmill working out one day, and I saw this strength coach talking about this program, and he was talking about how it's based on the stretch shortening cycle. So do we know what negatives are and doing eccentric work? I would throw in eccentric work occasionally. I know that you can get stronger concentrically if you work through eccentric phases of motions. So if I do really slow RDLs, right, and focus on the lengthening of the muscle, or if I do squats and I'm focusing on the eccentric portion of the movement, rowing, whatever, I knew that eccentrically you can train to get stronger concentrically. But he throws this into an entire program. So his program is pretty much based on the squat. So what he does is he has them going through a phase of maybe eccentric loads of squat. So you're taking maybe, let's say, 5 to 6 seconds to drop into your squat. And you're doing only 4 or 5 reps. But you're working eccentrically for 2 to 3 weeks. You're working isometrically for 2 to 3 weeks. So we're going eccentrically where we're lowering. We're going isometric where we're pausing. And then we're going, now after that, we focus on concentric, so regular speed. But what I think about his program is that I've never seen a bar move as fast as my athlete's bar move since I started this program. So before, what I would do is, well, I'll tell you what I'm doing now. What I would do is, I get them kind of accustomed to week 1, week 2, just movement in general, recruitment. Do we know, here's a trivia question for you. So what's the most common theme behind groin strains, back strains, and hamstring strains? What's the common denominator? What kind of recruitment is missing if we're constantly experiencing back, hamstring, and groin strains? I think somebody said it. Glutes. Yeah, glutes. So I'm gonna back up. First day of my class, or when I'm coaching, it's the coach's class. We learn how to breathe. That's the first thing we do. We're living, so we're breathing, obviously. But there's a right and a wrong way to breathe. And I think, for me, the reason why I started to incorporate it is because it's probably the most common cue that I have to give people. Breathe. Breathe. Like, we're doing agility drills, people's mouths are closed, or they're lifting and they're not breathing. I think we don't understand that your body, your nervous system, something doesn't feel safe if you're not breathing, right? You're tense. And so, if I could have a volunteer, I'll kind of show you one of the first things I do in the weight room. If anybody's game, to just kind of breathe in front of people, which is pretty easy.
Thanks, Felix. Come on, man. There we go. Let's do it. There we go. Yep. There we go. Thanks, Felix.
Okay. So let's have you just go ahead and lie down. Go feet here, head there. Okay. Now, his knees are going to be up, feet on the floor. I want you to take a deep breath in and let it out. So I hate to do this to you, but stand up for me real quick. Let's take a look at how he breathes when he stands up. So we're both going to breathe. On the count of 3, deep breath in and out. 1, 2, 3. Notice the difference? What's the difference? So what's he doing versus what I'm doing? Right, so this is chest breathing. It's putting a lot of strain on his neck muscles, putting a lot of strain on his traps, which essentially put a lot of strain on his shoulders. And potentially, I don't know, sometimes people get tightness in their chest when they're breathing. So he's not breathing through his diaphragm. So to correct that, now I'm gonna have you go ahead and lie back down on the floor. Gotta teach him how to belly breathe, and we'll superset this type of stuff. So knees up, feet on the floor. Okay. You're gonna put your hand on your stomach, right on your belly button, just one hand. Good. Yeah, there you go. So when I say breathe in, I want you to try to expand your rib cage. Before, he was lifting his rib cage. Now I want him to expand his rib cage, push his belly out. So take a deep breath in, push that belly out, try to expand your rib cage, and then let it out. And this is what I'm looking for, is his back rising? So if his back is rising,